Good afternoon. We're back with another episode of the Lord of the Rings LCG Progression Series. And today is a card review of Across the Ettenmoors. So far in this cycle, the cards haven't been great, in my opinion, for solo play. The quests have been fun, though. Let's see what we got here. The hero is Dory. Oh, interesting. We haven't had a dwarf hero for a while. Tactics hero. I haven't had a tactics dwarf for a while. In fact, is there another one besides the core set ones? Yeah, so far it's just been Gimli and Thane, or Thalin. So I guess we get another tactics dwarf finally. 10 threat, 1/2/2, pretty weak stats. Sentinel. After another hero is declared as a defender, exhaust Dory to add his shields to the defending hero's shields for this attack. Well, very rarely are you going to want to use two heroes to defend one attack. That's only going to happen if you're really facing a big boss, or if you're really facing a big boss, or if you're playing heroes that are not geared toward defending, and therefore you need two of them to accomplish what a decently statted hero would normally be able to do. So let's say you're playing like a strong questing hero that only has one shield, and then you need Dory to supplement. But man, is that bad. Wow, that's... I don't get this card. I don't think it has a use. I mean, why would you play Dory with two shields and 1 willpower when you could just play Baragon with 4 shields and 0 willpower? His 1 willpower is not going to matter if you have to exhaust him to add his shields. Okay, so let's say you've got a big attack to deal with for 4 or 5 or something. Yeah, you could add Dory's shields to another hero's and deal with the attack, or you could just play Baragon and deal with it that way. I don't know. I just don't see it with this hero. What's his best case use? I guess he helps you deal with an 8 attack or something if you only needed to do it once. Well, I'm talking about solo play, of course. So maybe in multiplayer this would have a use. Maybe you're running maybe the whole point of him is for multiplayer to just have another option for a tactics hero if you're playing dwarves. You're playing a 2 or 3 or even 4 player game, so you're getting pretty deep in the hero pool. Someone's running Dane, and you want to take advantage of his buff to willpower and attack, and you want to play tactics, but someone else is already playing Gimli, not unlikely, in a 3 or 4 player game. Maybe someone's even playing Gimli and Thalin. And you want access to the tactics sphere, so you play Dory. And then you make use of his ability to buff your teammates' heroes when they get attacked or things like that. Okay, so that's the usage, I think. In solo, I don't think this is good. I can't imagine playing this hero in solo play. Certainly not outside of a dwarf deck. Even inside of a dwarf deck, I would not play this hero over Gimli, I don't think. There might be a really, really niche case that you could make a case for, but yeah. Anyway, in solo play, no, I don't think so. Then that's kind of been the theme of this cycle, is that it seems very multiplayer focused in the cards. A lot of cards that I just don't see a use for in solo play. I want to, Because I always like new cards and new synergies, but yeah, I just don't see it this cycle so far in solo play. But I'm hopeful that that will change. So Dory, just don't see a use for in solo. Potentially a use in a deep, kind of a deep pool game, 2 or 3 or 4 player game in multiplayer. But that's about it. Ranger provisions 1 cost attached to a location, limit 1 per location. Response: after attached location is explored, the first player adds 1 resource to each of his hero's resource pools. Huh. So 1 cost, okay. That is pretty good as an accelerator. 1 cost for, well, it's basically +2, right? So it's a Titan or belt without the caveat that you have to not have spent anything this turn, but with the caveat that you have to explore locations, so you can't do it immediately. This is okay. +2 resources is okay. Not super strong. Generally, the time when extra resources makes the biggest impact is early game. And you can't really play this early game unless you're exploring a location very early, i.e. starting with 1 in staging or as an active location. And that's not going to be every quest. Generally speaking, if you don't get this out until later, its use is greatly reduced because resources make their biggest impact early game before you've had an opportunity to get other acceleration cards out like Steward of Gondor, or before you've had the chance to establish a board state, a stable board state. And this card can't be played like turn 1. Well, it can be played turn 1. It's not going to be in a lot of quests where its effect is going to happen turn 1 in time for turn 2. But it's an okay card for like, so its ideal usage would be early to mid game. If you draw it late, it's not going to be that good. You'll be sad that you didn't draw something else. I don't really like cards that are specifically early to mid game because it feels like their ideal usage doesn't come up that much. If this could be somehow, if we could somehow have this effect turn 1, it'd be great, but that's only going to be in a few quests. So I wouldn't say I'll never use this card. I might experiment with it some. I think it's worth a look. Nothing phenomenal, but definitely worth a look. Dunadine Message. 1 cost, signal, search your deck for a side quest and add it to your hand, shuffle your deck. Well, I was just talking about in the last card review that this was needed to make side quests more consistent because you can only play 1 per deck. So this does mean you could rely on a specific side quest. However, there is a caveat, and that caveat is if you're playing this to only grab 1 specific side quest, then you're going to have 2 copies of it that are dead. So you need 3 side quests in order to make sure you don't have any dead cards. And I don't know that there are 3 good side quests. There might be 2. I mean, the 3rd one might not be that good. That's a lot of cards to dedicate to side questing too. I don't really think you're going to want to do more than 1 side quest typically, because it's going to slow you down too much. So I prefer it if this effect was attached to an ally that you could get some usage out of in a case where you already drew the side quest you wanted. Like this kind of reminds me of Rivendell Minstrel, which goes and searches for a song. And it's like, okay, once you play that card, yay, I found my song. But now I'm not going to get much use out of the effect. Maybe I'm pulling the songs out of the deck, but it's just to get them out of the deck. However, that card is still a 2 willpower ally for 3 cost, and that's not bad. I'd prefer this effect be something like that. However, this does make the side quests better by virtue of making them more consistent, and that is needed because, in my estimation, the side quests to this point have been weak in solo play. So definitely keep this card in mind for the future. But it's not phenomenal. It doesn't all by itself elevate side quests to a must-play status or anything like that, in my opinion. Longbeard Sentry, 3 cost, 0, 1, 2, 3 health. Discard 2 cards from the top of your deck to give Longbeard Sentry Sentinel and +1 shields until the end of the phase. Discard 2 cards for +1 shields? That seems like a steep price. And it's understated. Jeez. Well, I guess if you had a lot of card draw and a lot of cards you didn't need because you're short on resources or because they're duplicates, 0 willpower, that means it's really just for defense. I don't think this is good. I really don't think this is good. This seems very expensive for what it does. And it's on Sphere. That's what's puzzling about it. You could easily have... Now, if you had this start with 3 shields and the option to buff up for discarding 2 cards for 1 more, well, that makes sense. But as it is, you're basically discarding 2 cards just to get it to a place where it's okay. Yikes, that's not good. No, I don't think that's good. Let's move on. Delay the enemy. 0 cost side quest needs 8 progress. Limit 1 per deck. Battle questing. Interesting. When this stage is defeated, each player may choose and discard a non-unique enemy engaged with him. For solo play, that's a steep cost for the effect. That's a steep cost. I mean, you think about the resources you need to dedicate to make 8 progress. You have to do battle questing, which not every deck might be geared for. I don't think this card is good in solo play. Like, you have to contribute 8 attack power to the quest in order to defeat 1 enemy for solo play? That's terrible. How many non-unique enemies take 8 attack power to defeat? Not that many. This is not a card that's built for solo play. Now, if you could contribute 8 attack power to defeat like 4 enemies worth, I don't know, 5 each, that'd be 20. That's more of a conversation. But again, this cycle, I've probably said this a lot, but this is a card that makes more sense in multiplayer than it does in solo. In solo, it's just flat bad. There's no way around that. Unless there's going to be a use in the future that I haven't seen yet, like a 20 health enemy or something that's non-unique. But right now, this is not good. Steed of Emuldrus. 1 cost, mount, attached to a spirit or Noldor hero, restricted. Response: after attached hero commits to a quest, discard a card from your hand to place 2 progress on the active location. Okay, now we're talking. That's a card. You know, it strikes me, this is kind of funny, but you could put this on Glorfindel. Light of Valinor is not restricted. Asphaloth is. But you can have 2 restricted attachments per hero. It seems to me that the mount card needs a special rule that you can only have 1 mount per hero. Because thematically it doesn't make sense that Glorfindel should be able to have 2 steeds. Although I suppose you could make the case that he's like riding on one and leading one behind as a pack animal or something. So maybe that's what they're thinking in terms of allowing 2 mounts per hero. But I think this is good. I think this is a very good card. And its spirit. Like, Asphaloth has the restriction of not being able to play it in a deck that doesn't run lore because it's a lore card, and Glorfindel, the best version of him, is spirit. This card doesn't have that restriction. This is a great card. I think I would include this in almost every deck where I'm running an Noldor, unless I'm just running no unique cards, because you can... Well, it's only on the active location that does matter. So Asphaloth you can use on any location for 1 additional cost, and you have to be running lore, of course. But I think this is very strong. It's going to need playtesting to confirm it. Maybe it's not as strong as I think it is. But considering I always seem to have cards that I don't have a use for in my hand because they're unique and I already played them, or duplicates of a card that I don't need, I think this is a good card, Steed of Emuldrus, and I'm going to definitely try it out. And I think in a lot of situations it's straight up just +2 willpower in exchange for discarding a card. And I think that's great. So, good card, in my opinion, but it probably needs playtesting to confirm it. I don't know if I would buy the adventure pack just for that card, but it's possible. Its power level is high enough that it's possible that it will significantly improve your questing ability when combined with, and it can go on any tactics or any spirit hero, so that's nice. Fair and Perilous. 1 cost, choose a Noldor or Sylvan character. Until the end of the phase, add that character's willpower to its attack. Whoa. Okay, so it's an event, not an attachment, a one-time use. So you use this on, like, you could use it on Elrond, Celeborn, Glorfindel. Particularly, well, if you're playing Galadriel, you'd have to save her, not quest with her. But if you had a troublesome enemy in a stable board state, you could do that and then use her willpower to buff the characters and then use this to really buff them up. This has a use to overcome specific challenges. I don't think I'd put it in every deck with Glorfindel or Elrond or Celeborn, but this definitely has a use in some specific challenges where you don't want to run a lot of combat cards, but you do have a boss to beat. In terms of deck building challenges, I've encountered that a few times where, like, I want to play a full spirit deck or something. Or not a full spirit deck, but like a full questing deck. But a lot of quests are like, they're heavy willpower focused in terms of what you need to overcome it, but they also have a boss fight at the end. That's very common. And you don't have a way to overcome the boss because you're playing all willpower focused cards. And this card allows you to do that and then still have an option for defeating a boss at the end. So I like it from that standpoint. I do think this makes that specific challenge easier to overcome because I came to the conclusion that it wasn't really practical to play a deck with a strong willpower focus against these quests with a boss at the end due to the problem with killing the boss at the end when all your characters are focused on willpower and not attack. And so this card helps with that, and I appreciate that it exists, even though it's not useful in every deck, or perhaps not even in a lot of decks, but it does help overcome a specific challenge. Welling Hall Preserver. 3 cost, 3/2/2, 3 health. 3 willpower for 3 cost is great, especially in lore. It is an Ent, so it enters play exhausted, and after it readies, heal 1 damage from an Ent character. Well, it seems great with the Treebeard hero. Seems really good with Treebeard hero, in fact. Like an auto-include. Because it's 3 willpower for 3. Now, you have to knock a little bit off that because it enters play exhausted. But given that each time you heal a damage off of Treebeard, you can use it to give him +1 willpower and attack, This seems like a very good card to play with Treebeard Hero. Almost an auto include. The first half of this adventure pack, not so good. But these last 3 cards have all been pretty decent. Maybe the best 3 cards of this cycle so far for solo play. None Return, 1 cost. Limit 3 copies of None Return in the victory display. After a non-unique enemy is destroyed, add None Return to the victory display to add that enemy to the victory display. Okay, so this is the card that goes with Raw Seal. Last adventure pack we had one that puts a location in the victory display, and this one does the same for an enemy. So you can help her take advantage of the +2 shields. But wow, I don't get the design of that card. And the reason is because you're going through this effort. You have to play 6 cards. Then you have to kill an enemy. Then you have to clear a location to get her to full power. And her full power, the reason I don't get it is because her full power is only 4 of the stat. You get 4 with shields with Baragon for free. You get 4 willpower with Eowyn for free. And yeah, it's nice having both on the same character, but then in order to take advantage of it, you have to play Unexpected Courage or some other action advantage. And that's yet another card. So man, getting her set up to her best case scenario, 4 willpower and 4 shields, and the ability to make use of both of them in the same turn, that requires a lot. That requires a lot of setup, and that's going to be bad early game. Requiring a lot of setup is not good in solo play. You need a huge payoff in order to make bad early good in solo play. Hopefully that makes sense. If you're going to be bad early, then you better be really, really good late in solo play, or you're not going to be able to overcome difficult quests. I don't see that with Raw Seal because I think this takes too much effort and the payoff isn't high enough. Maybe for the amount of effort, I would like to see her be the highest willpower hero in the game, or the highest shield hero in the game, to make the payoff for this setup worth it. Otherwise, it seems expensive without a corresponding reward, which has been the case with a few cards in this set in solo play. Delay the Enemy is that way. Longbeard Sentry is that way. They're not good cards for their cost. They could potentially be good if they weren't so hard to set up, or if they had a higher payoff. But that is not the case, and so I would put that as a fun hero, but not a good one. Hope Rekindled. 0 cost neutral song. Reduce the cost of the next event that has a Valor trigger you play this phase by 2. Valor action. Search the top 10 cards of your deck for an event that has a Valor trigger and add it to your hand. Well, any card that you need to be over 40 threat at to get full value out of is not going to be good in solo. Well, it's unlikely to be good in solo because it's not going to be good early. It's going to be okay early, but not good. And we're looking for we're looking for a reason to buy this adventure pack, right? Now it could be there's lots of people watching, just like to talk or think about the cards, hear other opinions, other ideas, etc. But one of the main reasons that I looked for that kind of thing when I used to play CCGs and not have a lot of money is I was trying to decide which adventure packs to buy and which ones I could maybe skip and not be hurt too much in terms of what decks I could make. So if you're looking for a reason to buy this adventure pack, I don't see one, frankly. Steed of Emuldrus is the closest thing to a reason to buy this adventure pack. I frankly haven't seen a reason to buy any of the ones in this cycle so far, unless you're playing through all the quests with a playgroup or a solo and you don't want to miss out on any, or you're a collector. But I don't think you need Steed of Emuldrus. It might be nice to have. We'll see. It might not even be that good. I'm not sure, but I think it is good. But it's not a reason to buy this adventure pack, and I don't think Fair and Perilous is too, although it might be nice to have. Welling Hall Preserver, probably not essential either, but nice to have. So anyway, Hope Rekindle doesn't do it for me. Though it's okay if you're playing events with Valor triggers. It's not going to be, you're not going to be able to trigger its ideal usage scenario early in the game though. And cards that are slow aren't good in solo, because solo needs to get off to a very strong start, more so than in multiplayer. Because a lot of times in solo there's a big challenge to beat early. I suppose probably in multiplayer too, but it can be particularly hard in solo because a lot of the challenges don't actually scale up that much when you're playing multiplayer. I'm reminded of, for example, the Hill Troll and the Journey along the Anduin. Journey down the Anduin, where you get one Hill Troll whether you're playing with 1 or 4 players, and obviously a Hill Troll is much harder to beat solo than it is in multiplayer, and therefore it's much more important to get off to a good start in solo. Now they've stopped doing that as much. Generally it does scale up, in some cases even you don't have to reveal any encounter cards at the beginning if you're solo, but still, I still think the game trends toward more importance on early gameplay in solo than for multiplayer, and therefore cards that are slow are not good in solo. So the closest we get to a reason to buy this adventure pack would be probably Welling Hall Preserver for a Treebeard deck, or Steed of Emuldrus, just as a generally good card to play for a Glorfindel deck, which is a lot of them. Potentially for any Spirit Hero deck where you're going to be running duplicate cards that you won't need. And Fair and Perilous has a niche use, but I wouldn't call it essential. Anyway, we'll hope for better things later in the cycle. And thank you for watching.